Hey guys, so we just had two YCS events, although for this video I'll only be breaking down the most played hand traps and staples from YCS Utrecht only, since that event had more information on the deck list. And before I continue, big thanks to my sponsors as always, make sure to check out their product using my discount codes. So this was the breakdown of the top 64 cut at YCS Utrecht, and a big thanks to the Carlauncher store for creating these breakdowns, and also for creating the visuals for a variety of deck lists available. Another big thanks to Christian Forsman and Lundry D. Villain for creating an amazing spreadsheet of the deck lists that are available. I'll put the link to their spreadsheets below. Now of course I didn't have all 64 deck lists available, and in fact only had 25 available to work with for these breakdowns, and this was the pie chart for the decks included, so a lot of the breakdown will be leaning towards what was played in Spright since they had the biggest contribution by far. As an overview of the hand traps, this ranged from 0 to 16 in the main, but the median was only 3 hand traps, which I believe is tied for the lowest that I've ever seen among the breakdowns I've been doing for the last 2 years. With decks like Runic Spright, they pretty much only play Imperm, and many opted to main Lava Golem instead of hand traps as well, and so a lot of people were more so on the board breaking approach. As for the side, this ranged from 0 to 9 cards with a median of 3, which is the same as usual. As for going second board breakers, this ranged from 0 to 12 in the main with a median of 4, so a bit of an increase since the last month. In the side, this ranged from 1 to 11 with a median of 6, which was the same as last month as well. We saw this sort of trend for the European Championships where hand traps lost favor to board breakers, but by the next event at YCS Niagara, the hand trap count was up again, so let's see if that trend happens again or if we actually move towards playing more board breakers than hand traps. So let's cover the top 10 most played hand traps, and we start off with Infinite Impermanence, which most people have been considering as the best hand trap of the format. Being a trap means being able to play around talents, which some people have been main decking again. Really good against both Spright and Tiers, and is really versatile. Next we have Nibiru, which was still popular, although it was sided more so than main decked. Interesting to see if this continues to see play this much post Darkwing Blast. I personally found that Runic Spright does not play into Nib as much as Pure Spright does, but perhaps that's just my own observation. At third we have Dimension Shifter, and while this card is a staple among Floowandereeze, it's not just that deck that can run this card anymore, but also Spright can typically side this card as well against that tier matchup. If you watch Joshua Schmidt's profile, he also explains that he wants to be shifted when facing Floowandereeze because you can just make Mannequin Cat and then bring out Chaos Haunter if that happens, so that the opponent cannot banish cards anymore, which is just wild. At fourth is Sci-Frame Gear Gamma, which has always been a strong hand trap but came with the cost of running the brick in driver that makes people hesitant to run it sometimes. Can definitely be turn ending against Spright though, and is usually impactful against most strategies. At fifth is Ash, which continues its decline in popularity, as for most formats this is actually always number 1. It is a bit low impact, and since the decline of branded Despia in the format, the usage of Ash has continued to decline. It was all main decked if played at all, which is always the case for Ash. Seems like you either main it or don't play it at all. Then we have DD Crow, which is nice against Tiers, but it has been declining in play lately. To be frank, this card probably won't see much play after this format since the new Bestial cards are better than DD Crows in a sense and gets you some chunky bodies on board, so you sort of swell DD Crow. Next we have the newest upcoming LT, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, a card that's only sided if played. It's nice to be able to get rid of that Spright Elf or Kit Kalos, but do keep in mind that with at least Spright, since they are about to get Sprint, even if you cherry all their elves, they at least have a play left with their new link. Then we have Droll and Lockbird, which I think is sneakily good right now. As you can tell from the tournament breakdowns, Floowandereeze has been making a comeback in play, and Droll is good against them as long as they don't have Shifter. Now if you play Spright, and along with that aforementioned play with Mannequin Cat if they Shifter you, they may not side Shifter against you and you can feel free to Droll. If you watched my interview with the #1 ranked player on Dueling Book during your match, he also said that he actually sides out Shifter against Spright even before this Mannequin Cat and Chaos Hunter play was revealed. Then we have Effect Failure, which will basically hit every deck, so it's a safe hand trap to run if you have other hand traps in your arsenal. Not as good as before since health is banned, so it doesn't give certain decks that easy health to Celine to access Code Talker combo, but it is definitely a good card still. Lastly, we have Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, which might be the first time this card was featured on my top 10 list. It's sort of like a Veiler, but it's also kinda neat because it can do some burn damage, which especially in this format may be the difference in winning the match. It's kind of unique in its effect because even on your turn you can use it if your opponent special summons, which is something you can't do with Veiler or even with Imperm if you already control cards and you didn't have it set already. As for the top 10 side deck staples, we are starting off with Cosmic Cyclone because, well, Red Reboot is banned now. It was in most lists that were publicly available and is a better choice than Twin Twisters at the moment to have more reliable out to Mystic Mine or the Runic Field spell. Quarter of the decks were main decking this card even if it was just one copy. Next we have Evenly Matched, which is funny because if you saw my recent data video on the history of the most played side deck cards by format, I mentioned that despite how good Evenly Matched was, it was never a unanimous choice in the side deck. Well, that finally got proven wrong, as the majority of the list were running this card, with a good chunk even main decking it, even though they were going first deck, because it's just so strong of a card if you ever have to go second. Then we have something we don't want to see, and that is Red Resonator, which is to win in time, and as I mentioned before, most of the list included for this analysis is Spright, so it makes sense why this card was placed this high, as only Spright would be able to play this to win in time. Next we have Call by the Grave, and interestingly, half the deck's main deck while the other half sided it, even though traditionally it has been mostly a main deck card. It fell off in play for tiers since they started using the danger cards, but looks like even a lot of Spright lists have cut it either from the main deck or just entirely. Then we have Feather Duster, which half of the list actually main deck this card. Nice generic out to back row, and especially with many strategies running something like Rivalry, which can shut off tiers, and to a degree Spright, this may be nice to have in your arsenal. Next we have a Pointer, where despite the recent limit on this card, a decent amount of people are still running this card. Now considering that many Spright decks are also running Eradicator in the side, which also lets you look at your opponent's hand, guess another card to snipe your opponent's hand doesn't really hurt. Really wish Konami didn't get rid of Red Reboot though. Then we have Dark Ruler No More, which continues to fall in play, which is a bit surprising to me, but I guess it's understandable as you can play without it. More so main deck if played at all, despite all the lists being going first strategy. Sadly, Dark Ruler your opponent is far from victory, as the top decks right now have a really good recovery game to come right back at you. Next we have Solemn Judgment. Not much to say about this card, just stops pretty much anything, and being able to negate that Dark Ruler or stopping the first normal summon can be pretty big, despite the hefty life point cost. Then we have Dino Restorer Pankratops, and while a good card, this card likely will also become obsolete soon with Darkwing Blast coming out, as Kashtra Fenrir is just a much better version of the card, as it can banish a card face down and can even search itself. Thanks for your service though, Pank. Lastly, we have Forbidden Droplets, which is coming back in play a bit alongside Dark Ruler. Nice that it's a quick play so that it can be used when going first as well, although of course you do have to send some cards as cost, which could potentially be beneficial, but in most cases you do have to lose out on something. There was also Lava Golem and Rivalry that were played in 5 lists as well, and Lava Golem is something that Runic Spright were main decking and is a great out to many boards right now. Alright guys, so that was it for the breakdown of YCS Utrecht. I hope that was helpful in preparing for the next event. Things might change quite a bit for the next YCS since Darkwing Blast cards will be legal, so excited to see what change that brings. As usual, a big thanks to my Patreons, Eileen Dice Queen, Bolt Spider, Cybernetic, Brandon Jaren, Spooky Boogie, Stephen Phillips, and Chaz Blanks as always for supporting this channel. You guys are awesome. If you're interested in joining my Patreon, link down below. Take care guys.